And we're back with the program. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly appreciate you being part of the program here today as part of our continuing series on the best of 2017 in pop culture. We've covered so many topics, but one pop culture topic we cannot forget is the awesome world of pro wrestling. And I know we usually have Mike Crockett or Brian the King or the Kingpin, Brian Malonis stopping by, but they are out and about doing whatever it is that they love to do right now. So I was fortunate enough to send out some feelers, and who should reply but none other than the man, the myth, the legend, well, one of them anyways, behind Intelligent Wrestling Conversation. You got to check it out today. You subscribe today or listen to their show on Apple Podcasts and so many other different outlets. It's Intelligent Wrestling Conversation, and it's one of the hosts I have here today. It's Billy Donnelly. What's going on, sir?
What's going on, my man?
Not much, not much. Just wrapping everything up right here in a wonderful 2017, making sure that everything's good as far as lining up all the best stuff. So we've done movies, television, esports, video games, a whole bunch of good stuff. But pop culture is, there's so much to it. It includes so many great things. One of the great things is definitely pro wrestling. And we've got to have a list out there of the best pro wrestlers and also best pro wrestling matches to see out there. I know there's a lot of great contenders and not necessarily from the WWE. Is that correct?
I would venture to guess, or actually to say that most of it is not from the WWE. So
I would say so as well.
yeah, so if you live inside that WWE bubble, I'm gonna shatter it for you, and then you're going to thank me later as you move into 2018, realizing that there's so much else out there in the world for you to observe in the world of professional wrestling.
Oh no, definitely indeed. There's New Japan Pro Wrestling, Ring of Honor, TNA, and so many other different independent outlets away from World Wrestling Entertainment. I've been a fan since the early 80s, so absolutely. If you are an extended fan, you are very well knowledgeable about all these other outfits and whatnot. But if you're not, like you said, you're here to inform the masses on the top wrestlers and also wrestling matches. So, and like you said, a lot of them will take place outside the WWE.
Oh, absolutely. Get ready because there is going to be a lot of talk of New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Oh, and definitely indeed. And New Japan Pro Wrestling has burst onto the scene again in North America after quite a few years hiatus, staying within their own realm in the Japanese market, but now branching out once again because of the huge popularity of the Bullet Club and other ventures such as that, and obviously the top quality wrestling that they have. Their marketplace is still very small comparatively here in North America. You can only really find them on Access Television and obviously off their own website. But I tell you what, there's a lot of great action indeed in New Japan Pro Wrestling. And I know you've got a lot to talk about as far as the wrestlers and matches from all over. But you know, I both know it starts and ends with New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Yeah, so wherever you want to start, we could dive right in. I guess I've compiled a good amount of stuff here for us to discuss.
Well, I guess it starts off with the best wrestling matches that people need to, search out, whether they need to pay for it to check that out. But if they want to check out the best matches of 2017, and there were quite a few, although at being a longtime fan that I am, the eternal 5-star system is now being defunct into a 6-star, 6.25-star system, which is now beyond ridiculous at this point.
See, I pay no attention to the quote unquote Meltzer scale, which I believe is fairly ridiculous. I believe the top match of the year, which I will get to in just a few minutes, on my sliding scale, my Billy Donnelly scale of excellence, actually received 48,375,000 stars. So that would just go to show you that stars don't matter. You can give them up completely arbitrarily and randomly, and they still paint the same picture. So
True.
don't put a
Very
lot of
true.
stock into other people's star systems. Just when people say this is a really good match, just go watch it and decide for yourself.
Exactly, indeed. And what were some of those matches? Well, actually, what were the matches that you feel are the must-watch matches of 2017?
All right, so I got 6 for you in total, and I'll work their way down. Usually, I don't give like a tie for the 5th spot, but considering that I had nothing from the quote unquote WWE universe on my list to start, I figured I would take like 2 matches and I jam them into the 5 spot just to satisfy people in that realm. One is definitely belongs on the list, I believe, but then there's one that for me is a personal favorite that I also just like made sure to tack on. So tied at number 5. I think you got to go to NXT Takeover Chicago, the match for the UK Championship between Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne. That is an excellent match that took place within the WWE universe. Once again, this is the WWE UK Championship title picture on an NXT show. So I guess that's about as good as you're going to do there. But once again, these two guys work tremendously, tell a good story within the match. So Bate and Dunne from Takeover Chicago, that is a phenomenal affair. And then the other one that is a personal favorite of mine. I thought this was the match of the Mae Young Classic, and this is the match between Bianca Belair and Kairi Sane. Check this match out. This is 2 women doing amazing things. Kairi Sane bursting onto the scene as sort of a prototypical babyface in the NXT women's division as they sort of rebuild that leg of the brand, with Asuka having moved on and a lot of the other women moving up as part of the women's revolution. And Bianca Belair is one of my favorites because she's been wrestling for all of like 5 whole minutes. And she is tremendous, just sort of gets it, physically gifted, has a great heel persona around her. So Bianca Belair versus Kairi Sane from the Mae Young Classic. I believe that is a 2nd round matchup, if I'm not mistaken. That to me was the match of the Mae Young Classic tournament, which I personally thought was the best thing that the WWE had put together all year. So those 2 matches from the WWE universe, I crammed them together into the 5 spot. And for people who like that WWE sort of style of wrestling, I think that will satisfy them. Even though both matches are not prototypical WWE matches. They're much more NXT matches. So it is what it is.
Well, that Mae Young Classic, I remember that match indeed. And I think that Mae Young Classic actually set itself up for matches that were non-traditional from the WWE format because you had so many outside independent wrestlers there for one shot, a one-time only, or trying to get a contract. So they had to do things sometimes out of the box in order to try and get noticed by the WWE.
I mean, Kairi Sane was a woman who they had a lot riding on to begin with. So the fact that she won the Mae Young Classic, spoiler alert, and when it all was said and done, is not really that much of a surprise.
No, but I'm talking about the other wrestlers. That
yes. I mean, this was a chance for them to really have an influx of female talent into their developmental system. Women who have from all over the globe, which really is a strength for the WWE's global reach in being able to pull a lot of those people into the WWE machine and get them a part of what it is that they're doing. But these 2 women, I think, are women that they can bank on for a long time. Once again, Bianca Belair, who's only been wrestling for I believe a little over a year, but is really good right out of the gate. I think she's only beginning to scratch the surface of what she can do. And Kairi Sane is a babyface like as is. Like she just sort of gets it. There's an it to her. They're just gonna have to sort of get her working into their system to be what it is that they want her to be. But having actually experienced that match live, I was there for both nights of the Mae Young Classic at Full Sail in Orlando, and then watching them back again on TV. it was definitely an outstanding event, and I hope it's not just a one-time deal that the WWE does, and that it becomes a regular occurrence that they put on a tournament like that.
I do as well. And I tell you what, it definitely shows that they are listening to what fans are wanting in some form or fashion. Sometimes they're still tone deaf when it comes to certain issues and things of that nature, but at least sometimes they are going out to try and create new ideas and create new ways to find talent for them to bring into the WWE. But those are the WWE choices, which people can easily find. But there are some great matches that people need to go out of their way to see. And so, which are those matches that fill up the rest of your top, well, let's say top 4 at this point in time of 2017?
Yeah, so I got 4 matches, and they're all in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Because right now, I mean, 2017 was the year of New Japan Pro Wrestling. And when you look at the matches that they put on month after month, week after week, there are some outstanding contests for you to go back and check into. So yeah, the rest of the list is all New Japan Pro Wrestling from here on out. So get ready. If you're not familiar with New Japan, this is the time to familiarize yourself with New Japan, because it's such a great time to be a New Japan Pro Wrestling fan. And let me just add one sort of caveat to it. As a result of our podcast, when we sort of rebuilt it, Intelligent Wrestling Conversation, earlier in the year, one of my main focuses was to sort of assign homework on a weekly basis, homework outside of the realm of what people normally would watch, so you could be exposed to other wrestling, not that just wasn't as easily consumable as the WWE. So a lot of credit to my resident expert in chief, the great Tom Nix, who really turned me on to a lot of this wrestling and really set me up over the course of all the wrestling I'd watched this year to become such a New Japan Pro Wrestling fan. So a lot of what I'm going to go through here is a lot of what sort of he opened my eyes to, and now I'm going to pay it forward and open up the eyes of other people to see some of these matches as well. So the number 4 match on my list would be Kazuchika Okada, better known as the Rainmaker. He is the IWGP Heavyweight Champion. And his match against Katsuyori Shibata at Sakura Genesis ultimately turned out to be Shibata's last match, or what will ultimately become his last match after an injury he suffered during that contest. That to me is one of the it epitomizes what New Japan Pro Wrestling is all about. So Okada versus Shibata from Sakura Genesis would be my number 4 match on the list. Moving down, number 3 would be Tetsuya Naito versus Tanahashi in the finals of the G1 Climax this year. Tanahashi is basically, for people who are unfamiliar with New Japan Pro Wrestling, he's kind of like the John Cena of New Japan Pro Wrestling, just this real white meat baby face. Everybody loves him. He does all these great things. But now there's a little bit of an edge to him as well. And Tetsuya Naito is really a guy who does not care. He once was a sort of a baby face, a fan favorite, and really just sort of threw that part of his life away and does not care. And as a result of that, became a tremendous heel who the fans have now responded to because he doesn't care. So Naito versus Tanahashi is not exactly the greatest. I wouldn't say it was the highest build in the G1 Climax Finals. You had Okada Omega 3 in the G1 Climax tournament. Kenny Omega and Juice Robinson had a tremendous match. There were a number of tremendous matches throughout the G1 Climax tournament. But the finals, which is basically for the Wrestle Kingdom briefcase, so to speak, the Money in the Bank, I guess, for the right to go on and main event at Wrestle Kingdom 12, Naito versus Tanahashi at the finals of the G1 Climax this year. I thought that was the number 3 match on my list. Which then brings me to my top 2, which are kind of neck and neck, because They are two tremendous affairs, and they both involve the same exact people, just in a different style of match. So the top two matches of the year by far are Okada versus Omega. Kazuchika Okada, once again, the Rainmaker, versus Kenny Omega, the Cleaner, at Wrestle Kingdom 11. And then they have a rematch a few months later at Dominion, which is Okada versus Omega 2. This is really a matter of taste. Different people like different like one or the other, and they're really not wrong. You can make a case for whichever one of those matches speaks to you more. But as far as I was concerned, I thought the initial match, Okada versus Omega 1 at Wrestle Kingdom 11, that is my number 2 match. This match, I believe, goes on for 47 minutes in total. It is a tremendous storytelling match. Really ring psychology out the yin yang for Okada versus Omega 1. This is a match where one of these participants does not even get to unleash their finishing move, because a lot of the story around that match is if they hit that move and no one who has ever kicked out of it, then the match will be over. And so the fact that one of their moves is never even brought out in the first initial match says a lot about what you can do with a wrestling match without giving everything away to the fans. So that's a 47-minute classic, which then leads to my number 1 match of 2017, which is Okada versus Omega 2, the sequel at Dominion. This is a 60-minute all-timer in which no one actually wins. But you won't care because you are so drawn in to everything that happens in the ring, the back and forths, the false finishes, the late kickouts, the just the ebb and flow of this match. And it's 60 minutes and it doesn't feel like an hour. It just sort of flies by. And when it's over, you feel incredibly satisfied, just emotionally drained. But I think that the sequel is better than the first match. And so for that, Okada versus Omega 2 at Dominion, that is my number 1 wrestling match of 2017.
Those are some great choices indeed. And I was surprised you didn't even mention the August matchup they had at G1 Climax as a capper to all, like a trilogy of great matches between those two as well.
I mean, it is like the Return of the Jedi of the trilogy, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with Return of the Jedi. It's a 30-minute match. There is a time limit as a result of being a part of the finals, or as a part of being a part of the G1 Climax tournament. It's a lot faster paced. They're really throwing everything but the kitchen sink at each other. I just think that the first 2 matches tell a better story. I'm not as high on the third match as some other people. It is a good capper of the year for sort of their rivalry, but I think it pales in comparison to the first 2 matches, which are easily ranked 1 and 2 on my top list.
Once again, it is Billy Donnelly from Intelligent Wrestling Conversation. You got to check out their great podcast today on Apple Podcasts, where he and Tom Nix, they go at it as far as giving you the insight into everything pro wrestling today. So you got to check it out. Intelligent Wrestling Conversation on Apple Podcasts today, and so many other outlets, I'm sure, as well. And he's going to mention that at the end of the show, just in case you want to check it out on any other format. Well, Billy, it comes down to the best wrestlers of 2017, and I know there's plenty to choose from that had very, very good years, but again, we're going to lean into a lot of New Japan Pro Wrestling, but there were some other surprises as well outside of it. But like you said, a lot of what went on in pro wrestling centered around New Japan Pro Wrestling.
I mean, there are a number of tremendous talents, and I mean, I think the top three are really easy to settle on. I don't really think that there's a conversation outside of them for sort of wrestler of the year. And just like with the matches, I think when you get to the top three, a case can be made for any of them, and you would not be wrong. I think there's a legitimate argument to be made for any of the top three, and you would have a valid case behind what it is that you're putting forth. Now there's a number of other talents who have had tremendous years. I think The Miz had a tremendous year in the WWE, even though he went off and I think shot two different movies. But he made the Intercontinental Championship mean something once again, and so for that I think a lot of credit has to be given to The Miz. He's a better personality and heel than I think he is a wrestler. His wrestling, I think, is still underrated. He does what he needs to do, but I think a lot of what he carries is just sort of in the heat that he's able to draw, which is sort of unmatched in the WWE right now. So I think a lot of credit has to be given to The Miz. Kevin Owens, I think, is always a tremendous personality, even though I don't necessarily know that Kevin Owens has gotten everything that you would want out of a Kevin Owens year, being a part of the SmackDown brand right now. I think going back to New Japan, Tetsuya Naito has had a tremendous year. I mean, he's going to be headlining and being a part of the main event at Wrestle Kingdom 12 next week. So that in and of itself is a big deal. But I think really when you get to the top three, and look, and even when you come down to the women, I don't want to leave any of the women talents out of this either. Asuka, I think, had a tremendous year, even though I thought her 2016 was better than her 2017, because she was out of action for a little bit, and they're still trying to incorporate her into the main roster. Once again, Bianca Belair is a favorite of mine, even though she's only been on TV like twice. But you will not have win any argument against me that says Bianca Belair is not among the best in the business right now, because she is. So there's my mark out moment. But look, when you get to the top three, I think it comes down to Kenny Omega, Kazuchika Okada, and AJ Styles. Those are really the three best in the business. Period. I don't think that you can make an argument for anyone outside of that trio and not sound completely insane. So when it came for me, look, AJ Styles is a tremendous talent. He is truly phenomenal. It's not just a clever moniker. But I thought he did have a couple of weak spots here and there. Look, AJ Styles can carry anybody to a tremendous match, but let's not forget, like, he did have to wrestle Jinder Mahal for a while, and Jinder Mahal is not very good. And there were a couple of matches with Kevin Owens earlier in the year that I didn't think quite clicked. And so even though I know what AJ Styles is capable of and how good AJ Styles can make other people look, AJ Styles for me fell a little bit short of the top echelon, and as a result, I ranked AJ Styles third for 2017. Which really goes back to where we started with match of the year, which is Okada and Omega and Okada. They had the two best matches of the year, hands down, and they are easily the two best wrestlers on the planet right now. So where do you go? Because the Rainmaker, Kazuchika Okada, has been the IWGP Heavyweight Champion for all of the year. He has two losses to his credit, both in the G1 tournament, one against Evil and the other one against Kenny Omega. And he has a impressive win at the beginning of the year at the biggest show of New Japan, Wrestle Kingdom 11, against Kenny Omega. And the other one, he took him to a 60-minute draw. So by that, he's 1-0. He's 1-1-1 against Kenny Omega, which means Kenny Omega is 1-1-1 against Kazuchika Okada. But when I really came down to picking my top wrestler of 2017, it came down to a T-shirt. And that was the impact that Kenny Omega has had in making New Japan a viable brand, in bringing them over to the United States, in making the Bullet Club really sort of part of the vernacular. That was, to me, the X factor in deciding between Kazuchika Okada and Kenny Omega. Because I hate to break it to you, but Kazuchika Okada has t-shirts that are just the worst. Every Kazuchika Okada t-shirt is horrible. For a guy who is just awesome, who has money that rains down from the ceiling when he comes to the ring, his t-shirts are just hot garbage. And so you get deducted points for that on my scale of excellence. So even though he is still the current reigning IWGP Heavyweight Champion, I ranked the Rainmaker Kazuchika Okada second for 2017, and I put the cleaner Kenny Omega at number 1 on my list. I thought that Omega just did a lot, not just, once again, for the Bullet Club, for New Japan. I thought he helped build a lot of talent within New Japan Pro Wrestling. His match with Ishii in the finals of the G1 special in USA, I thought was absolutely tremendous. He helped give a rub to Juice Robinson along the way. Every single match that Kenny Omega has been in this year has looked ultra competitive, and when the match was over, whether he won or lost, everyone walked out of that match looking better than they did when they walked in. So for that, I think Kenny Omega, who also has the best knee in wrestling, with that heat trigger knee, which is just cringeworthy and brutal, Kenny Omega is my top wrestler of 2017, period.
Well, I want to make sure that on behalf of Hot Topic, that they will let you know that your check is in the mail. No, I'm just kidding.
I have my own Bullet Club shirts at home. I have a Bullet Club shirt. I have a Villain Club shirt. And all of this is really part of what the Bullet Club has put together. And I hate the Young Bucks too. So it's all just, I mean, they have sort of, it's very similar to the height of the NWO or D-Generation X, where there was just a thing about this thing that they've created and put together, and it's not really any different than what we've seen before. It's just they have managed to catch lightning in a bottle with what they're doing, with how they do it, with the people that they've brought in to do it, with being given the freedom to do it. And so I think that they have done something that I don't think anybody thought possible in the wrestling landscape just a few years ago. And that doesn't mean that New Japan Pro Wrestling is trying to compete on a global level with the WWE. They're not going to be able to do that. They're not pumping billions and billions of dollars into their wrestling product. But what the Bullet Club has managed to do is be the outsiders, both literally and figuratively, in a number of ways. And that is edgy, and that is cool, and people are drawn to that. And a lot of that has to do with Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. And so, my hat's off to them. They're doing something tremendous. And I hope they keep doing it, because especially with Kenny Omega being crowned the first ever IWGP United States champion as an English speaker over in North America, that's a big deal for helping New Japan Pro Wrestling continue to grow.
Indeed it is, and with his impending battle coming up with Chris Jericho, which has garnered a lot of mainstream media, and that tells you right there exactly the influence Kenny Omega has had in the world of professional wrestling in 2017, and not just the fact that he's creating and helping to create these outstanding matches. And I was checking, and I was doing a lot of research on the top 100 matches so far this year, and I'll tell you what, between him and Okada, you could pretty much throw a blanket over the number of matches that both are involved in these top 100 matches. So they're both, like you said, it's pretty much a wash, which way you go, if you think Okada is number one or if you think Omega is number one. But Omega has gone well and above and beyond that outside of the ring to not only, like you said, help bring the New Japan Pro Wrestling phenomenon to the North American market with Access Television and all that, but also as well actually help extend the life of Bullet Club even after losing Finn Balor and other losses as well, and still making it very much relevant, very much successful, and still, well, of course, as Hot Topic will tell you, a very, very wanted shirt. I mean, people are wearing and buying and getting these shirts, and not all of them have any idea exactly what it's all about because they just want to do it because it's cool. And not often in our professional wrestling does that happen. I mean, you can go back to the NWO and Steve Austin, and only those few selected times where it has transcended outside of the business. And a lot of that is due to Kenny Omega. And I definitely agree with you that Kenny Omega should be considered the top wrestler of 2017 because he has definitely taken everything that he did and all the momentum that he took into 2017 and pretty much got everything out of it as well.
I mean, and don't get me wrong. I love the Rainmaker. Like, I think that Kazuchika Okada is the best. He is my absolute favorite wrestler probably right now on the planet. I just think that Kenny Omega, for what he managed to do, had a better year. Does that mean that he's overall a better wrestler? I don't know. Once again, they're 1-1 against each other. So, you slice that up any way you want. But I do think that there's just an it factor to everything that the Bullet Club is doing right now. And I can't tell you how many times when I wear a Bullet Club shirt, that random people on the street will just go out of their way to come up and to sweet me. It happened just the other night. I was in New York for the holidays, and I went out drinking and doing karaoke and stuff wearing a Bullet Club shirt. And in one place, there were like 5 people who came up and to sweeted me. So there's just something about it. And like I said, it's not the sanitized, safe WWE version of sort of like putting a faction together and right now. There's just an edginess to it. And I think the WWE has also helped feed that by sort of like knocking the Bullet Club or, cease and desisting the Young Bucks, all of these things that just sort of add to the aura that they are against the system. And that's, I think, what a lot of fans gravitate towards, is that they're not the WWE. They're not a WWE product. They don't act like the WWE. They don't behave like the WWE. They do everything on a totally different level. And people love that about them because they're craving something different. And Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks and Marty Scurll and Cody Rhodes and the Gorillas of Destiny and Bad Luck Fale and everybody who's involved with the Bullet Club, they're giving it to them. And I think right now people are looking for something a little bit outside of what the WWE is doing. And right now, New Japan is the perfect place for you to find it.
Absolutely, indeed. Those are some great thoughts indeed on the world of pro wrestling. And mind you, there's still so much to choose from outside of the WWE and New Japan as well, with Ring of Honor, Total Nonstop Action, Lucha Libre all over the place in Mexico with AAA and whatnot. There's still so many different outlets that you can get your wrestling fix. Lucha Underground is coming back for another year as well. So there's so many different outlets that you can find and get your wrestling fix out there that it's still viable, even in a WWE-dominated market. And of course, the WWE universe with the WWE network as well can still give you a lot to choose from as well. Well, Billy, before we got to go, I want to ask you exactly about why Intelligent Wrestling Conversation is one of the premier places to go in regards to wrestling talk on the internet today.
Because we're intelligent. I mean, it's right there in the title. We are not we're not fanboys, we're not smart marks, we're not fantasy bookers. We're not sitting there just bitching and whining and complaining about things. I'm not there. We're not railing for an hour about how much John Cena or Roman Reigns sucks, or how they can't wrestle, or how horrible they are. We try to put everything within context and offer up some perspective on why things happen and whether or not things work, and why it matters, like why you should pay attention to certain things or view thing or take a different viewpoint for how you watch professional wrestling. We don't recap Raws and sit there for 90 minutes and tell you about the show you just watched. We don't do that for SmackDown. The only thing that we will sort of break down are pay-per-views. The rest of it is, let's talk about larger issues in the WWE. Let's talk about what matters. Let's talk about why you should be paying attention to certain things, and what it is that you really should know to be an intelligent wrestling fan. So that it is not. It's once again, it's also not just a clever title. We want it to be people who talked about wrestling in a smart way, not just in a fanboy complaining way. And the IWC, our sort of anagram, we did that on purpose to sort of poke fun at the IWC. So haha, we took it and we owned it in your face.
Very, very funny indeed.
That was petty, but whatever. I can
exactly. But I will ask, where can people find it? I know I've mentioned Apple Podcasts, but there's got to be more outlets where they can go ahead and get your outstanding programming.
I mean, look, you can find it basically wherever you get your podcast from. So iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, Blueberry, you name it, we're there. Just do a search for Intelligent Wrestling Conversation and then subscribe to the podcast. Click that little button so that you don't have to search ever again. They just get hand delivered to you, whatever device you set them up on. So this way you never, ever, 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 ever miss an episode until the end of time, or when the asteroids come. So subscribe to it and then rate it. Give us 5 stars for amazing 5-star effort. If it's 1 star because you don't like it, just save that and give it to somebody else. And then while you're there, also just review the podcast. Just jot down some words. Tell other people why we're so amazing and awesome, so that they can learn why we're so amazing and awesome. And then they tell their friends, and so on and so on. Just like the commercial was years and years ago. So yeah, we're available basically wherever it is that you can find us. And then follow us on social media. So on Twitter @the IWC Show is the official Twitter handle of Intelligent Wrestling Conversation. And my Twitter handle, so @InfamousKid, 2 Ds at the end, KIDD, @InfamousKid, for all my random ramblings and musings. Now in, I believe, 280 characters, so I don't even have to limit myself or condense my sentences. So now it speaks a little bit, it flows a little bit better than it used to.
Awesome. Those are some great ways to get a hold of you and obviously listen to your outstanding show indeed. Well, it's Billy Donnelly from Intelligent Wrestling Conversation. You got to check out their programs for a deeper, in-depth coverage of the world of professional wrestling. Tell you what, Billy, it's been a pleasure having you on, and such a great conversation on the best pro wrestlers and pro wrestling matches of 2017. I'd love to have you on again at some point in time on the show, when your schedule allows it. It just definitely has just been awesome talking to you about everything pro wrestling.
See, the intelligence is infectious.
Indeed, it is. I hope it stays with me, but we'll see. But again, it's been great having you on the program, Billy, and I truly appreciate you being part of the pop culture cosmos.